As an approver, you can delegate that function to someone else in your absence. So if you happen to be someone that has been delegated the task of approving in the absence of the permanent approver, you're going to want to log into Concur, and under Profile, you're going to select Acting as Other User in this field, and you're going to start typing their name, or you're going to select from the list that pops down of people who have given you this access. You're going to start session. And now you're acting as that other person who is an approver. So what you're seeing is everything that's in their queue to approve. So you're performing that function while they are gone and they've temporarily appointed this task to you. So you can see here they have 2 approvals in queue. So you can go ahead and select one. And so this will open up the request or the expense report that's been put in the queue for review and approval. In this particular situation, this just happens to be mileage expense report. So what you can do is hover over the receipt icon to see hopefully the mileage log. That kind of gives you additional information about the mileage that's being claimed. You can see any comments that have been left from the preparer or the traveler themselves. Anybody else who's left a comment, you can hover over and read what those are. You can look at the details menu and look at the report header if you want. This gives you an opportunity to see demographic information about the trip. Totals will show you a breakdown of what is going to be occurring in this case. It's going to be a reimbursement to the employee for the $89.13 related to the mileage that they're claiming for the month of October. So if everything looks okay and it seems agreeable, then you're going to go ahead and select the Approve button, the orange action item. If something seems amiss or something's missing altogether, you can send this back to the user by clicking this button. You will have to put a comment about what the expectation is as far as changes, updates, corrections. If you just have a simple question about the transaction, this might not be the best function for you to use, as it will send it completely back to the traveler and they will have to resubmit it again. So it kind of depends on the situation. If you just have a general question and it doesn't necessarily need to be documented for sake of approval later, you could handle that outside the system. But if it's something that you would like to have documented or clarification that sticks with the record, then absolutely send back to the user, especially if it's missing something or needs to be corrected. And then once they make those corrections based on your notes here in the comment field, they can submit it again for approval. So once you're done with that, we'll go back to approvals again. And you can see there's a second one here. So you would just kind of work through all the approvals that are out there and cover the ones that you feel comfortable with covering in the absence of the permanent approver. This particular one is an expense report as well. You'll see that it's under the reports versus the requests. So again, you can look at receipts, make sure that it makes sense for the expense item that's listed. You can look at other icons that are here. If you hover over, you can see there might be some chart field allocations where they're splitting the charge between different chart fields. Every approver that has oversight over a specific chart field will see this expense report so they can sign off and authorize the use of that department's budget. Again, you can look at details and maybe look at your totals, see how it's breaking down. In this case, the employee is going to be reimbursed $104.65. The campus actually paid for this person's airfare because they booked it in the system. So they're not out of pocket for that cost. So they won't be reimbursed for it, but it is an expense tied to this particular trip that will be charged to the department's budget. So you'll see that here as an amount that the university paid on this person's behalf. So the total expense to the department is the $293.35, although the employee will only be reimbursed the $104.65. Again, send back to user or approve. The approve and forward function is not something that you would typically use. What it does is it inserts another approver into the workflow, and you have to designate who that person is. So it adds another layer of someone else that actually has to touch this expense report and approve it before it can move forward to accounts payable for reimbursement. So keep in mind, we already have the established required workflow set up in the system to go to the required approvers, so you don't need to add an additional layer. If you're wanting to just share this expense report with someone else, you can select the print and email option. And you can download it as a PDF and email it, or you can email it using this button and assign it to the person that you'd like to email it to using their email address. And that will provide them with information about this expense report. But you're not adding them to the approval workflow. So there's a distinction there depending on what you're trying to accomplish. One more thing to make note of before we go. When you look at this expense report, you can see the relationship to the original approved request. So if you expand on this menu item right here, you can see that the original request was submitted with these expenses estimated. So overall, while there may not be a one-to-one relationship with what you see on the expense report, you can use this as a way to review what was asked for on the front end and approved and what has actually happened on the expense side of the house. So in this case, you can see that the original request was approved for $390.50, and the expense report is now totaling $293.35. And that's it for acting as a delegate. Once you're done, you can say done acting for others. And then you're back in your dashboard as yourself and no longer acting as that approver.